Kwemeka Uti, welcoming you to the program this evening. As Nigerians are gearing to vote for a new crop of leaders come 2023, there is this fear that the political class who would be wanting to secure the votes of the people may not pursue an issue-based approach to the campaigns, which in turn will be a minus to the Nigerian people and the development of our democracy. Upon the commencement of electoral campaigns, a code of conduct guiding activities has been issued by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The Commission has clearly warned that a political message or slogan must not be tainted with abusive language, directly or indirectly, likely to injure religious, ethnic, tribal, or sectional feelings. INEC also said abusive, intemperate, slanderous or based language or innuendos designed or likely to provoke violent reactions or emotions shall not be employed or used in political campaigns. The Electoral Empire further warned politicians to refrain from actions or inactions that could attract sanctions as spelled out in the Electoral Act 2022. From past experiences, many political gladiators employ all manner of below-the-belt tactics in order to launch their various levels of smear campaigns against their opponents while leaving pertinent issues unaddressed. On the big issue today, our focus is centered on issue-based campaign and good governance. I'm now being joined virtually by an international public relations consultant, a former senior special assistant to former President Jonathan, and he is the chairman, National Peace and Integration Summit, Dr. Ike NELIAKU. Thank you for joining me on the big issue.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Obi.
Dr. NELIAKU, in the build-up to the primaries of the various political parties, and of course, now that the campaigns have commenced, many consequential voices have described and continue to describe the 2023 general elections as very crucial in determining the future of Nigeria. How would you assess the process so far into the game?
I'm glad that you're taking on a subject matter that is very important. And I would like to thank you for the concept of big issues, because this is really a big issue.
Thank you.
I want to start by really looking at the challenge of our election. I know that you want me to take it from a particular axis, but I would like to lay some foundation.
Okay.
You know, for some of us who have been in the public space for some time, as social engineers, as development personnel, and so on and so forth, what we see is a faulty programming that is expected to produce wrong ideals, because the flow of nature is very clear. A poor ideal situation will produce a poor ideal outcome. So our electoral system and our campaigning and so many other things about our elections, the process in the past has been designed in a way that will not produce ideal outcomes. And the reasons are very simple. Where INEC, from what you read, INEC has given robust code of conduct, guidelines, rules that will guide the campaigns. But I tell you that the political class has a way of doing their own thing. The below the belt that you are scared about will not come from the candidates themselves. They will deploy some characters who are supposedly distant from the campaigns to be the ones to go and do all those things that you are afraid of. And they will do it so neatly in a manner that will not be obviously linked to the candidates. How do you manage that? Maybe I need to remind us of the character of current dispensation, which has been programmed into our national psyche as a people. One is our culture. We have been given an electoral culture that is completely negative. To start with, all our elections must hold on weekends, because if it is not on weekends, the situation is that it may not go well. So, if it's on weekends, everybody must sit at home. Nobody should move. It's so bad that you cannot even move from your street to the next street, because security will be everywhere. Why? Because we have built into ourselves the culture of fear and violence. So, fear and violence on the side of the electorate, fear and violence on the side of the regulators, on the side of government, on the side of citizens. So everybody is bothered. We have our campaigns that are characterized by deceit and contradictions. You hardly get the truth from any of the politicians. The issue for them is win elections at all cost. Number 4 is campaigns that are heavily populated by thugs and thuggery, bandits and banditry. These are the content of the characters of what we have. And then again, you go to campaigns, you see uniforms. Somebody was talking the other day, and the person was saying, why do we have to blame politicians for not taking women very seriously? When women have decided that their place in campaigns is to wear uniform and come and dance. So for them, they look forward to dancing situations, they look forward to wearing their uniforms, and unfortunately, men have joined them. So you see campaigns characterized, and the political class will tell you that it is color. You need to add color to the campaign. What happens to people wearing their individual things, decked in their individual ways? Wouldn't that also become color? But because our culture, we have been designed and programmed along those lines. So we must wear those things, we must sew uniforms, we must wear uniforms, and so on. And then you have the next one, which is the mesmerization. Instead of real messaging, they come there to mesmerize and dance and sing and all those things. And then you now have the issue that really sometimes are very, very confusing. That is threat and abuse in place of persuasion. Campaigns are designed to be persuasive, where you come and give your message based on content, based on delivery, based on mastery of this thing, because you cannot remove communication from the place of leadership. Those of us who are involved in leadership will tell you that one of the leading barometers of effective leadership is effective communication. Because you have to communicate your concept, you have to communicate your ideas, you have to persuade people, and so on. And then the last one that I have is that our campaigns and our elections are heavily laced with monetary influence. So if you don't have money, you have nowhere, and so on. So these are the things that have characterized our campaign. Why am I going to the background? I'm doing this because, you see, good campaigns will always give birth to good election. Yeah. Good elections will always lead to good governance. Because if you have good elections, guided by good campaigns, and so on, what do you have? You will have good governance. And when you have good governance, Obi, you will certainly have development. We are challenged by development today. We are challenged by good governance today because our electoral processes have suffered. We have not been able to provide a system that allows the best to be elected. As a matter of fact, in our system, because of the way the process and the system and the culture and the mindset have been designed, being qualified is considered an anathema in the electoral process. If you are very good, if you are sound, if you are knowledgeable, they will say that you are arrogant and that you are proud and that you will not show understanding to the political class. Therefore, take him out. So you now see that those who come forward are those who are prepared to kill, who are prepared to maim, who are prepared to cheat, who are prepared to do so many things. And at the end of the day, you see the result that the wrong people are elected. So one of the fights that I expect us as citizens to always fight is to fight to have the ideal situation. When we see these things in other nations, we celebrate it, we are excited. But when we come to our own country, it's a different thing because it's a concept of the winner takes it all. So coming back home, we need to begin to sincerely rebrand our culture, our understanding, or let me say, deprogram what has been programmed into us and then reprogram ourselves to begin to understand what we expect from the ideal electoral situation, electoral process, because I have spoken so much and I have talked about the politicians. What about the electorate? The mind has been conditioned. Every 4 years, we have to go for an Olympic. And in this Olympic, rice must be shared, uniforms must be sewn, money has to be distributed. So if a very good man or a very good woman comes to contest and he has not brought rice, he has not brought money to be shared, he has not brought clothing that will be used, materials that will be sewn into uniforms, he is not considered a serious candidate. So you see that there is a challenge in mindset between the electorate and the elected. It's as if there is that commonality. But I think that the time has come for us to reprogram ourselves, to know exactly what do we expect, and to fight to see these expectations put in place for us to be able to have credible election. I will stop at this point.
How worried are you about the conduct of political parties and their supporters? Even before now, it's been verbal attacks against opponents, spread of fake news, which are often mischievous, and inflammable rhetoric. How worried are you about this trend that has characterized our political climate?
I am certainly worried, not just about that, but I'm worried about the nation. I am worried about the system because, like I said earlier, these are products of a system that is not working. And I will give you a few examples. In a situation where the gladiators have this mindset that so much is spent to win elections, why should they lose? I have had somebody tell some of his supporters that it is not us that we lose. Do whatever you can to ensure that we win the election. Let the other person go to court. When we get to court, we will sort it out. This is a message from a candidate to his supporters. With such a mandate, what do you expect from the supporters? It's going to be do or die. Certainly, because the leader has given them a mandate. And this mandate that the leader has given is also a product of the system, is a product of his environment. So when the system has not been properly articulated, it becomes a big issue. And every right-thinking Nigerian should be worried, should be concerned, should have palpitation, because it's like once we are coming into the circle or the cycle, as the case may be, of elections, nobody is sure. And I'll give you another example of it. People predicted that the naira would further depreciate from the 28th of September.
And sadly, it is the case.
Sadly, by the 29th of September, it happened. Somebody may say, well, it's an expectation. No, it's not. It is based on reality, because now the naira has been so badly beaten that carrying it around for campaigns is no longer fashionable. It's to few dollars that convert to so much naira. More importantly, it has become an ego trip. People now spend dollars in Nigeria when we have our national currency. So you see, my concern is that it is entirely connected. You have the economic downturn arising from that. You have the political downturn arising from that. You have the socio-cultural downturn arising from that. And I ask myself, what is the PR dimension to all this? At the end of the day, perception, as we say, oftentimes become reality. And as a PR person, I keep bringing things from the perspective of reputation and perception. At the end of the day, the perception that is given to Nigeria is very ugly. A nation that is incapable of doing the right things. Somebody said in 2019 that the failures that we got from the elections were not as a result of poor regulation or poor handling by the INEC, that it is the politicians, and the politicians will always have their way. And unfortunately, the ways of politicians are very bad, and so on and so forth. But even as I say all this, I would like to draw two lines. Number one, you will not say that because politicians are bad and the elections go the wrong way, that the electoral body must be given a clean bill of health. No. That my son is a thief. He's not, though, but I'm just giving you an example. That somebody's son is a thief may not mean that the father or the mother did not bring him up well. It could also mean that the father and the mother encouraged him and showed him that unless you do this, you may not survive. So in other words, we all have our part in all this. Number two, when what we see is black and we call it white because it suits us, because it favors us, at the end of the day, we are supporting what is not right. We are transforming wrong into right and right into wrong. So I am deeply concerned. I'm deeply concerned about the system that we have today, and that this system has continued to throw up wrong things, wrong candidacy, wrong structures, wrong attitudes, and so on, that will not help us. The political parties, even those that have convinced themselves that they are not competent to win elections, the way they make noise, you will think that minus that noise making, every other thing would have been resolved. I have seen a national chairman of a party say that the whole essence of having a political party is not to win election. It is to have a platform so that those who want to win election will come and pay. As a national chairman of a party will come and pay and use the platform to do whatever they like.
Exactly.
And the other person told me, a member of National Working Committee of a political party told me, he said, Dr. NELIAKU, what you don't realize is that for us, election is our own Olympic. Every 4 years, Nigerians send people out to the Olympics to go and compete. Some will win trophy, some will not win. Those that win are given monetary compensations and so on and so forth. But in our own case, this is our own Olympic, and we do it every 4 years. So we come out. So we look forward to these 4 years, and no attempt by anybody to deprive us from winning our laurels, winning our competitions, and these things that we want, these trophies come in many dimensions. It may be monetary, because we have to take money from the desperate politicians who are looking for platforms
at all costs
to express themselves. And they know that they will not win. But we give them platform and they pay us for our services. So it's an Olympic game. So the Olympic has come again. Shouldn't we be worried? Shouldn't we be worried? We are worried.
Now that the campaigns have been flagged off, as an expert, which critical issues must be played up at this time?
Okay. When we resolve the issue of transforming from the non-ideal to the ideal, I will want to look at the following issues. Number one, Nigeria is badly divided. We have never been this divided in the history of our country. And going into the election, you would see that this same division has been carried forward. The emergence of those being touted to be the three leading candidates will easily give you an impression of where we are headed and to what extent that may further deepen our process. First, you have Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who is presumed, because he's from the north, he's presumed to be a northern candidate. You have Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because he's from the southwest or from the west, he is presumed because he's from the southeast, he is presumed to be an Igbo candidate. So you have these three elements playing already on our fault lines. So you see the danger that is before us. Therefore, I would expect that as much as possible, we must play down on things that would further expose our fault lines. Our fault lines as a Yoruba man before becoming a Nigerian, an Igbo man before becoming a Nigerian, a Hausa man before becoming a Nigerian, a Fulani man before becoming a Nigerian. This is one area that we must take very seriously. The social cohesion report that was published by African Polling Institute says that about 82% of Nigerians prefer loyalty to their ethnic nationalities before Nigeria. So they prefer dual citizenship or dual identity. I'm a Yoruba Nigerian, I'm a Hausa Nigerian, I am an Igbo Nigerian. Only 9% desire to be Nigerians by identity, not minding where they come from. What does that tell you? It means that the first task is to, how do we reinvent our nationhood? How do we reconcile our people to become Nigerians, not their ethnic nationalities? America did it, and it has worked so well for them. you don't find people celebrating that they are Pennsylvanians or they are Georgians or they are Texans. No, they celebrate that they are Americans. Why did they do that? They were able to make America more relevant, more respectable, and more attractive to their individual ethnic or state identities. That's what I expect to be in place. We must come to a point that we are able to reinvent our nationhood to be more attractive than our ethnic nationalities. If we are not going on that trajectory, that I will find it more pleasurable to be a Nigerian and actually find it a bit painful not to be a Nigerian, to be an Igbo man, then we are moving on the right road. So, first for me is the challenge of reconciliation, which brings me to the next issue, which is the issue of integration. Unless you reconcile a people, you cannot integrate a people. All right? So you see that these things are intertwined. After you have reconciled, the next is how do we now integrate our people. So when NIPR began the process of Citizenship Summit for National Integration, Peace and Security, these are the things that we saw, that this is where the nation should be going to. We should be going towards reconciliation. We should be going towards integration. And then next will be the issue of value reorientation. We need to introduce values. We expect those who aspire to lead us to tell us how they want to reculture and reprogram the citizens to begin to look at things differently. We need to begin to look at our leadership recruitment system. How trained are our leaders? And what are they trained into? Is somebody trained to be a bag carrier? And from becoming a bag carrier, he becomes a security personnel. What do I mean by security personnel? Because he has been given the office of a thug, but they give it a beautiful name these days, that is a security personnel. He's a protocol officer. And from being a security personnel and a protocol officer, he matures to become a leader. He knows next to nothing about leadership, but because he has followed Oga for a long time and he has learned the wrong things about leadership, he becomes a leader. He ends up becoming your chairman of a local government. He becomes your commissioner, not based on merit, what he has done.
Because of our time,
you see that I am being very deliberate. Before I even come to the issue of the economy, I keep telling people that the problem of Nigeria is not economic. Because after you have provided the economy and people eat, and their culture, their mindset has not been touched, you have done very little. Obi, your studio is working because the culture has been established that these are the basic things required for a studio to work. Not because they ate well, not because they have good economy, but because their culture has been influenced. It's after we have done these things that we can now come to the issue of the economy. Then we can address the economy. Economy in emptiness will result to an empty space.
We can only hope that these issues you raised come to center stage as many of the political parties are going into the campaigns proper now. All right, in one of your presentations, you mentioned that the civil society organizations and the media are very important components in ensuring the governance system of every nation works. As a matter of fact, the society functions effectively with them. Now, the question on the lips of many Nigerians is, do we still have these civil society groups in Nigeria? And does the media play its role in Nigeria?
We have many civil society organizations, but the civil society organizations have been corrupted by the system they have found themselves in. And that is the unfortunate part of it. But even in all this, we still have some people who are standing very tall. I cannot mention names because I'm on air. There are still some people who are operating in the civil society space that still parade some measure of integrity. But the reality is that substantially, the civil society organizations we have in Nigeria have become part of the problems. The bread and butter issues have taken over. The same as the media. Today, anybody is a journalist. Anybody. Somebody who drops out of school becomes a journalist because he can read and write. Somebody who has no business with media management becomes your media or social media manager because he can post stories. So you now see that non-professionals have taken over. And when we talk of banditry, it's not only in carrying gun. You can use your pen and become a bandit. When the messages you circulate cannot be substantiated. The media is very fundamental to nation building. But unfortunately, what we have today is not the ideal. And I pray that we will transform all these dimensions. It's a process and it's a work in progress. Thank you.
In the last 30 minutes or so, I have been speaking with an international public relations consultant, a former senior special assistant to former President Jonathan, and the chairman, National Peace and Integration Summit, Dr. Ike NELIAKU. Many thanks for sharing your views with me on the big issue.
Thank you. I wish you the best. You keep on in the process of reinventing Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Let's go take the news update, after which the big issue continues with our panelists waiting to lend their voices to this burning issue at this time. Please stay with us.
Update. Uluwatoyin Omodara is my name. Motorists and commuters have again called on the federal government to declare a state of emergency on roads across the country, particularly those in southwest states. The recent call follows the harrowing experience witnessed by travelers on the Akure-Owo Expressway following the collapse of a portion of the road at NELIAKU Junction. We'll bring you the details of the report in our bulletin. APC aspirants for the Akoko South East and Akoko South West Federal Constituency have received the judgment of the Federal High Court, Akure, ordering the party to conduct fresh primary in good faith. They noted that it would help the party find lasting solution to the various litigations within the APC fold towards achieving maximum victory in the 2023 general elections. That's the judgment of the Federal High Court in Akure was based on the agreement of all parties involved. Meanwhile, Federal High Court sitting in Yola has nullified the All Progressives Congress APC primary that produced Aishatu Binani as the party's governorship candidate for Adamawa State. The court declared that there will be no candidate for the APC in the state for the 2023 elections, but said both petitioner and defendant are free to appeal the ruling. Meanwhile, considering the insecurity challenges affecting Zamfara State, the state government has suspended all political activities until further notice. The state's Commissioner for Information, Ibrahim Dosara, said the government was saddened and worried about the resurgence of the activities of bandits and the recent killings of some innocent people in several local government areas in the state. The National Security Council has ordered the reopening of the Obajana cement plant shut down by the Kogi State Assembly last week. This order was part of decisions arrived at a security meeting held today in Abuja. The council also advised that all issues in contention be resolved legally, adding that the government's commitment to providing employment was not negotiable. The Kogi Assembly last week ordered the closure of the Obajana cement plant until the issue surrounding ownership of the cement plant was resolved. The state government had claimed that available documents showed that the plant belonged to it 100%, a claim refuted by the Dangote Industries, which claimed that the Kogi state government had no stake whatsoever in the plant. Nigeria's Flamingos bounced back from their opening game defeat against Germany, thrashing New Zealand 4-0 at the ongoing FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. Goals from Amina Bello, Miracle Osani, Taiwo Afolabi and Etim Edidong ensured the Nigerian girls grabbed all 3 points on the plate in the Indian city of Goa. Hungry to make amends for the disappointment against Germany, the Nigerian girls went all out for an attack against New Zealand. The first goal came as early as the 16th minute. The other goals followed in 34th, 75th and the 90th minutes to complete the rout. The win keeps the Flamingos' hopes of qualifying for the quarterfinal of the tournament alive. And that's it on the news update. By 7, we'll bring you a detailed bulletin. Big Issue continues in a jiffy. Please stay with us.
You're welcome back. It is the big issue on OSRC television. If you just joined us, our focus today is issue-based campaign and good governance, especially as the campaigns have been flagged off by many of the political parties in this electioneering period. Joining me now for the panel session, I have with me Dr. Benga Bimbola as well as Mr. Olalekun Olajobi. Thank you so much for being here once again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
I'm delighted to be here once again. Thank you for having me.
Great. One of the key things that worried me, and I guess you're worried as well, that our lead discussant, Dr. NELIAKU said, is that our electioneering process is like an Olympics that we keep looking forward to every 4 years, not because particularly Nigerians are willing to see a change or to arrive at something different, but because we're looking forward to the gains and benefits that we supposedly get from the process. If that were the case, if you believe that to be true, how did we get here and how do we even get out of it?
Well, thank you so much. First of all, you have said it according to what Dr. Ike, postulated as regards what happens every 4 years, which of course is like the Olympic Games, that everybody is already a custodian of, and always looking forward to what happens in every 4 years as regards change in government, but change in politics and political engineering, but no change in governance. Let me put it like that by at least postulating further what is meant by saying that it's just like an Olympics. We are not the only one in question here, because every nation of the world definitely in a democratic setting must at every 4 years go to the polls again and the ballots to actually check. In fact, most places you have a midterm report or scorecards again to check on how far they have actually lived up to their expectations and promises that they gave as matter of manifestos during their campaigns to the electorates. But every 4 years here in Nigeria, just like he had said, thoughts become deeds, deeds becomes habits, and when that is formed, it becomes character. And it has been habitual for every Nigerian to always look forward to that time, like you put the word jamboree, a time where everybody feels like it's good again to have another cut of the cake, not minding or not caring how the cake is being made, shared, and how people are supposed to at least have a fair share of it. So what he meant by that is to just tell us that, yes, every 4 years that happens, but how far have we gone in good governance? It's just the question that needs to be answered. And as you said, we're preparing again for another session, another round of the Olympiad. Sadly, well, let me put it like that. We need to assess the scorecard so far in the last 7 years, for instance, while we have had 2 Olympics that have brought in the current administration. So to say, what he has made mention of is that more of a habit. Nigerians are not as much as the way it should be interested in governance. If actually they are able to get what promises they have been given by the so-called political parties candidates in terms of manifesto, this is a character that has become a destiny of this nation, that every 4 years now people look up to it, and the assessment so far is not anything to write home about, if you want to be sincere.
Would you even say we've ever had, in the past, we've had manifestos, or what we have, political gladiators come make promises to us, promise after promise, and then they get into power, they get the votes of the people, and then nothing comes off of it, and then we leave and move on like business as usual?
Yes, thank you very much. The basic question you asked earlier, that how did we get here? Yes, we should be able to. Yoruba has an adage that a hunchback person, if he's moving, putting a load on his head, I say, this is warped. It's warped. Your load is warped. The hunchback will quickly point out that you are looking at the head. You are not looking at the foundation, that the body itself is warped. Now, we need to look at the structure of Nigeria. In the First Republic, we negotiated our independence. We negotiated the constitution that brought independence to us. And that constitution gave due cognizance, due recognition to our diversity. And so what we had that time was indeed unity in diversity. Then each federating unit had autonomy. And each federating unit was growing at its own pace, and there was healthy competition. We have now, immediately after the military struck, 5 years after the independence, less than 6 years, January 1966, when they struck, the first thing the first military head, Agu Ironsi, did was to abrogate federalism for unitary system. And that's where we are today now. Now, unity in diversity we had in the First Republic. There was healthy competition and there was development. But now we are having uniformity in disunity. Yes, I dare say, because we are not even operating already unitary. We are even operating a kind of uniform government, to the effect that everything is centralized. And so the federating units, there is nothing challenging them. The federating units they are no longer looking at how to bake the cake that they will eat.
Because at the end of the month,
they now go to Abuja to cut from the national cake. And that is why we are having jamboree. In fact, the elections in Nigeria, they come and they go, and nothing happens, because we don't have leaders that we are electing. We have rulers who want to rule us and get the best out of us. Ordinarily, it is the citizens that should get the best out of the leaders. If they are really leading, they will serve the populace. But we elect them so that we can serve them. And that is why in government we have a bogus government but lean governance, if there is any governance at all. So that is why every 4 years it is like a jamboree, because the citizens had already even signed off. They had already given up that these people we want to elect, they will serve us. They know they will not serve. So what they now do, they are waiting for their own time, that before you were elected, for us to be serving you, let us get the crumbs from you in terms of what they call campaign materials. And so when they get it, once they get there, they close their eyes. They know they will come back to them in another 4 years. So the foundation is that, the structure is that we had missed it. There is nothing challenging. I mean, when you know that at the end of the month, we are going to share. And that is why the federal system, the federal government is the headquarters of corruption, and the federal government is what everybody is looking forward to. Even as a civil servant, people want to transfer their service from the state to the federal because they know that there is more money at the federal. In fact, the entire revenue of this country, we have 36 states, 771 local governments, more than half of it is controlled by the federal alone. And all the federation units now share the other half. That is to tell you that something is wrong. Until we reverse,
so you
until
agree?
we come back, we cannot but be having jamboree every 4 years.
You sure do agree with Dr. NELIAKU that we have been programmed, electioneering process has been programmed in such a way that it cannot produce any ideal candidate?
Okay, it cannot. Why it cannot is this. My brother is here, you are here, I am here. No matter how brilliant our ideas could be, we cannot run for any elective post without belonging to a political party. And in Nigeria as at today, the only time we had political parties that I know, which I had read and had also witnessed, was in the First Republic and probably the Second Republic. That Second Republic, that was 1979 to 1983. That was, after that, there was nothing like political party. You now ask me that, what of APC, what of PDP? They are not parties. They are merely platforms. They are just platforms upon which people, because what we call political party, a political party is driven by ideology. There will be an ideology, something that is driving you. Even in the Second Republic, it had become so bad that people were cross-carpeting, leaving UPN to MPN, MPN to UPN. Whereas in real party structure, in developed countries, developed democracies, once you belong to a party, that means you share the ideology of that party. If you have any issue with that party, and if you don't want to go with that party again, you resign from active politics. You stay at home. Yes. There was a senator in the US in the last, a few years ago, in their election. His party, I think it was a Republican. The party did not feel him, and he did not go and join another party. He ran, he said, I am still a Republican in my heart, in my spirit, and he ran as an independent candidate, and he won. Because the philosophy, the ideology of his party, he could not carry it and go and throw it to another party which doesn't share that ideology. Tell me, PDP in Nigeria, APC in Nigeria, Labour Party in Nigeria, what's the difference? It is the characters, the same characters migrating from one party to the other. That is why we have a program. So party, when you don't have serious political parties, you cannot have credible candidates or leaders that we are going to choose from. All those people that are bringing themselves forward, talk about their primaries, APC primaries, PDP primaries. What led to the emergence of these candidates? Is money not a big factor there? And you say we are expecting something, a miracle.
Anyway, with what you have said, it's sad, but that every one of us understand at this moment, as much as we are aspiring or yearning for the next dispensation, that since the defaulted structural system has not been in any way either reinvented or reviewed to bring about a change, so to say, in all the electioneering processes, we're expecting the same results.
Despite we have a new electoral act, we have some new changes.
Is it not the same?
Some of the elections that we've had, no, some of the elections that we have conducted, INEC has conducted in Osrc State, in Ekiti State, has thrown up some issues that, we are happy about, in terms of improvement in our electoral processes.
Yes,
and all of that.
As much as I agree with you that there have been improvement in terms of digitalization that came into play, whereby at least to a certain extent voters and their votes, can be accredited, monitored, and found out that it will be countable and it will count. But beyond that, do you now still see that there are allegations, other allegations that will come from different quarters, especially the judiciary right now? Even that Osrc election you are talking about is still in question as we speak. So it is to tell us that the whole gamut of the electoral processes and even the electoral laws that we say we have is just a factor to be considered. There are so many other underlying factors. For instance, don't let's throw it under the carpet. How are political parties formed? That's the first question. If political parties are formed on the basis of plutocracy, for instance, let me use that word, the rich, the wealthiest set of citizens taking over the reins of government, what happens to the ordinary citizen? Where mediocrity is taking more than meritocracy, where people now prefer they prefer lassitude to diligence and all that. So you see a situation where that has been hijacked, and just like Dr. Ike said, that we need to be deprogrammed in our thinking, because ordinarily everybody has accepted that this is the norm. And the norm now, to a certain extent, is saying that, well, the process of internal democracy, for instance, within political parties, is faulted along the line. He said it and he made it clear that how do you expect the best brains, people who have ideas, who can come up with ideals that will change the society, get into governance when there are bottlenecks already? Look at the monetary aspect now involved in what we have just talked about. For you to contest for any position of office, it starts from millions, you know, for just the contest money, the fee. And outside of that, we talked about campaign. What are the campaigns that we use? Because in those days, the ideologies and the visions with which political parties are formed, moved into their manifestos, will be expressed fully in the campaigns. And campaigns that are supposed to be persuasive, you know, making people understand why I can do this better than you, and people listen to you. We have had that in the First Republic. Now is no more. Everybody is on the same page, telling you we will build infrastructures, we will change the economy, we will provide security. They will say all of this, but how will you do that? And if you do that, tell us in a way we will be able to sustain it, you know. And all these are things that are supposed to have been actually discussed, well articulated and thought out within the political party's framework, which will come out in their manifesto. Pertinent issues now are thrown under the carpet. They are no longer discussed.
How can those issues be discussed when there are so many wranglings in the political parties?
Before we
now
talk about that, you asked one question. You said we now have electoral reforms. We have electoral act updated and reviewed. That, I mean, and you were trying to say that at least we're having improvement. There is no improvement. Dr. NELIAKU
That's what the reports are telling us, that we're having improvement.
I say there is no significant improvement. I will tell you how and why. No, Dr. NELIAKU said the greatest problem is the mindset. Now, there is nothing wrong with all these the legal framework for elections. Even the one we had before and the one we're having now. But the characters that we operate it. I'm not talking of the electoral umpire, INEC. Okay. No matter how INEC is trying to enforce to give us a credible election, the politicians, they are not ready. So the truth is that they are always, I mean, before now, many years back, INEC, what was wrong with our law? Was anything wrong? Nothing. But politicians will go and hijack ballot papers. They will burn it, they will snatch ballot papers, they will print, multiple printing. Is it INEC that was doing that? Now we have moved beyond that. When INEC is trying to, has tried to make that one useless, they have migrated to commercialization. What happened in Ekiti? What happened in Osun? Was money not involved? Did the politicians, the parties, the candidates, did they not buy votes?
No, but INEC has come out to say that this coming 2023 elections, that they must
let me tell you something. The political parties that are contesting, right from those who want to be House of Assembly members, the state election, House of Assembly and governorship, then down to the federal, reps, senate and presidential, each candidate, each party is already piling or stockpiling money because they believe that they have crossed the first hurdle. The first hurdle is that you must spend a lot of money to get the ticket.
Yes,
and after bribing to get the ticket, you now need to bribe the entire electorate.
And adding up to what Dr. Hebe has just said, the truth is that Dr. Ike made mention of it while he was talking about the monetization and monetary influences in our politics, as it were, that people even predicted on September 28th that there will be a dollar rise as against the Naira fall. And that has happened. And he gave credence to that by saying that right now, people no longer even sell votes or buy votes in Naira anymore. Why? Because I mean, it's easier, it's feasible. You know, portability is one of the characteristics of money. So it's easier to to move large cash in dollars. And that is one of the reasons why the economy too is still in doldrums, because dollars now has been used much more than naira is supposed to be used. And there's still a prediction that between now and that election period, we might go as far as 1,000 naira to $1. So in essence, everything is monetized. And in that situation, we are talking about the mindset of the people. He made mention of it, and I agree with him that all of us are to be blamed, from the politicians even to the electorate.
Of course.
The electorate have their own fair share of it, because, I mean, you are not forcing
if you're not willing
to
to sell, exactly. If you're not willing to sell, then there's nothing to buy.
Because there's something in economics, the point at which demand and supply meets, you get a price. So if we are not actually ready, for that demand from them, and they are not supplying, even if they supply, if we don't want that demand, we won't have a price for it. But because even electorates, the mindset have been so brainwashed and distorted to a point that you would think, yes, without my conscience, I can buy my votes through. After all, it's a national cake. That's what everybody thought about. And in the long run, the man that has put so much investment in that, who has bought a fee of a ticket for about 100 million or so, who has put so much money and all that into elections. By the time the election is over,
definitely
wants to
no longer about service to the people.
So the thing is that there has to be a deprogramming. I agree with Dr. Ike. There has to be a reinvention, a reorientation.
Please, program.
Sorry.
Well, he gave an example. Let me come in there. He gave an example about why the ethnic fault lines that have been in time memorial in this country is still showing its face. And that was why he gave us an example of, right now, the three major political parties have fielded their own ethnic groups, their tribal brother. And which, of course, is exactly what came since 62 years ago. The major players then were ethnic-based. The Yorubas were represented by Awolowo, the Northerners by Ahmadu Bello, the Southern, the Easterners by Azikiwe and all that. That is the game that is replaying again. So it still shows that ethnicity, to a certain extent, is still playing that role. And it's not leading us anywhere, because we are putting it over and above meritocracy.
Exactly.
And it's one of the reasons that is still showing us. It made an example of the nationhood and tribalism, for instance, that in America, you will not see someone saying that I'm a Pennsylvanian, or I'm a Texan, or I'm a Georgian. Everybody sees America first. But in Nigeria, you want to be a Yoruba man before you be a Nigerian.
Ever get to that point where you see yourself as a Nigerian?
The truth is this: we can't.
We can't.
We can't, because the system, because there has to be a deprogramming of this mindset, and it has to do a lot with communication. It has to do a lot with reorientation, and all these ideas of I am an Igbo person before I become a Nigerian. We are all human beings, first of all, even before you become your tribe. So until we begin to think along the line of humanity, first of all, which has nothing to do with your creed, your race, but has to do with the content of your character through self-development. And the awareness is what will lead you to think beyond ethnic sentiments, religious sentiments. And these are things that we see in the fall now. In fact, the three major players right now, the drums of ethnicity is beating much more than whatever they have to offer.
Sorry. Well, I still come back to my point earlier on, that all these sentiments, no amount of orientation, no amount of communication can change anything until there is equity and fairness. Now, let us face the fact. How can you expect, you are talking of ethnicity, you are talking of religion, they not only play active role in politics, they also play active role in administration. Employment, for example. I mean, key positions, for example.
Admissions in schools.
Admissions in schools. Wow. I mean, what we call federal character. All these things, they are rooted, they promote ethnicity. And when all these things are there, I mean, somebody who scores 70 in an exam from Imo State may be denied admission into unity schools, while somebody who scored 25 in a state up north may be allowed. And you still want to talk to that Igbo parent that, please, let's forget about ethnicity. You can't. But what I'm talking about is that now the first republic, the first constitution allowed us to use our ethnic just at our own base, not for national politics. How do I mean?
By region.
Even the United Kingdom, that is a smaller country, is smaller in terms of population and geography than Nigeria. It has 4 nations and 1 country, United Kingdom. It has the England, the Wales, the Scotland, and the Ireland. And all these 4, they are distinct nations. Now, they gave us, we had that constitution, and we also had different nations. We have, in fact, our nations, we also geographicalize them into Eastern nation, Western nation, and Northern nation. That was why when even the first general election, independent indigenous government that we were to form in 1960, the person who won, the party that won it, the leader of that party chose to remain in his region as a premier and sent his protege to come and rule Nigeria as the prime minister, to be the head of government. I mean, was there no ethnicity that time? But that time he believed, Ahmadu Bello believed that he wanted to develop the North. He wanted to serve his people, and his people believed in him, and he was content with that. You understand what I'm talking about? Yeah. Today, nobody can say that I see federal, I have seen an opportunity in federal, I want to remain in the state. I
serve my region.
So I want to serve my region. So that is what I'm talking about. Now, today, the money politics is a serious canker. It's a cancer now. And I don't know how we're going to cure it. It didn't start now, but it has become widespread. I remember I don't want to mention, in this state, but I don't want to mention the person. There was a senator that was there for more than 2 terms, and some people, some friends and journalists, they said, campaign is, it has just started. We have not seen your posters. We've not seen your whatever. The guy dipped his hand into his pocket and brought out 1,000 naira note. It was very new that time. Say, this is my poster. Once electorate see this, they know me. Now, where are we heading for? Because we are not electing people to serve us. Everybody is running at the national cake. But if we remove the national cake and we come back, that those who have oil, let them extract their oil and play with it and live with it. Those who don't have
something to the federal government.
Yes, and pay something to the federal.
So by the time statehood is in place,
yes,
because you see the conglomerates of what makes America, that 52, 53 states, that counties, they have constitutions and all that, from education to extraction of minerals resources to human endowment and even security. Yes. They all have this, and that's what we are clamoring for right now. That look, we have 36 states.
But do you think that, like Dr. NELIAKU said, do you think restructuring is what you're talking about? Do you think it would actually
becoming more exposed right now? In fact, the cracks are widening more and more. So what do we have? We'll not still have that fault lines in the results or the outcome. We are deceiving ourselves. We can see the drum beat right now as regards, but apart from that, it is just a situation where if we as a country begin to see ourselves as a nation, because you see, the truth is, if I'm going to, yes, we were put together, the ethnic nationalities were almost about 250 or more. We know that, the same, all of these countries that he made mention of. But distinctly, if all these ethnic groups are put together, because they had their ways and systems with which they were governing themselves at those times before we said we had independence, even before amalgamation and all that. So down the lane, what I expected by now is that with the incursion and the development of man in terms of digital age, because right now the border lines have been wiped out, information goes in and out unlike before. So even the issues, because right now, if you say you are a Nigerian, what differentiates you to be a Nigerian? That spectacularly will let you know that you are a Nigerian. The Chinese, for instance, their major language is Mandarin. And they even study English language as a subject. It's not their official language.
Of course.
And one of the most populous nations of the world. They have structured easier for them to develop. But here we are. If I'm telling you now that I'm a Yoruba, for instance, look at what I'm putting on. Does that speak a Yoruba? Look at the language I'm speaking so fluently. Tell me to speak Yoruba now as a language. So all these things are factors too. Because right now you can, even when we were talking about the youth in politics and all that, a youth right now has so much potpourris of ideas and cultural reformations coming into his head by virtue of what comes in from the foreign world. So we cannot actually determine at the moment whether you are this or whether you are that, except we go back to the heritage of those culture that distinguishes us.
Now, how do we begin to go back there? We've talked a lot about the need to deprogram and reprogram.
Yeah.
Now we have youth, we have young ones who are growing up without history as a subject. We have a situation where the National Orientation Agency, many will tell you that they are non-existent, if they are even existent at all. So how do we now begin? How many parents, you are parents, I'm a parent, how many parents take that time to still share this history, this culture, this rich heritage with their children?
Thank you. If we look at, but I have come to a conclusion in my mind that government cannot give us the restructuring we are talking about. Yes, the political class cannot, because the political class is benefiting from this WAP structure. WAP system. Now, when I looked at it, in the last 22 years, the first party that ruled us was PDP, Obasanjo. And when he came, the agitators went to him and said, we need to restructure Nigeria. We cannot continue with this unitary system. He said he didn't believe in it. And his 8-year tenure did not give us any restructuring, though he tried his best. He settled our debt and whatever. But the structure still worked against us, remained the same. He left. But before he left, he brought up a constitutional conference. The rest is history. The next government that attempted was Jonathan in PDP. He also failed. He failed woefully. How? Because he brought it up with one hand and was looking at second term with another hand, with another eye, and the ambition beclouded his sense of reasoning to execute even some of the decisions of that 2014 recommendations. That one. Now, the current government, APC, it was one of the cardinal points of campaign that we will restructure. And everybody bought into it that, there was hope.
The desired change.
The desire, we want the change made public. It's gathering dust. And to ventilate our anger, to show.
Even legitimately, there are some sections of the Constitution that, you see, the average Nigerian at this point, when I talked about reorientation, I meant there should be communication through much more engagement in even understanding their rights, their privileges. They shouldn't be docile as such. The section of the Constitution that still talked about referendum as matters of interest like restructuring and so on, and even secession and all that can be discussed via referendum. That's an aspect there. So the issue is that as much as the masses have been deprived, have had a brainwashed mindset to think that the social contract they pay for and they will not ask for accountability and transparency and dividends of democracy, and the docility is costing them more. Because the system now will continue to favor those people thinking, asking questions from those people that we send there. And most of these communications, they asked Dr. Ikem, how about the civil society, or about the media too and all that. So the sensitization will start in form of a revolutionarized thinking, whereby everybody would know what is ought to know as regards the social contract. If I am voting you, you have what? Manifesto. Now they said campaign have started. Would you campaign without having a manifesto? So the three political parties already said, yes, we have wrapped it up, we have enriched it, we have done this. But I expected all those things to have been articulated by this time, and door-to-door canvassing, media advocacy and oricity. It has become a part and parcel of the system. As much as some of them are still saying now that, yes, we will get off with subsidy and all that, you have to be able to tell and persuade me how you are going to do that. We should be asking questions about all those pertinent, germane issues about how the political parties are willing, the candidates are willing to do.
Do you think
now the campaign, you know that Dr. Ikem said the campaign is more like a jamboree. Clothes are being sold. Ashwebi is there. So people believe in, and they have seen it, to be a kind of, a revelry, carnival, where you just go there, you dance.
And it becomes very colorful.
You dance during campaign, you share money and materials, and everybody goes back home. Without even asking questions about
the real issues are not
discussed.
When we say discuss, it's not campaign. What kind of campaign are we doing today? You see politicians, they go on the podium, after they have danced, after they have done the jamboree, they will just make promises. And those promises
sometimes mock the opponents.
Yes, and those promises are never interrogated. Now, How many election debates do we have in this country? From the grassroots.
They are even avoiding to
They are even avoiding it. These are the issues.
Maybe
Please.
we could start from there. If perhaps if candidates were held accountable and said, look, you must attend.
It has a lot. It still has a lot to do with our constitution. And I think that electoral reforms should still be geared up more.
Yes,
to making sure that even when political parties are formed, before you will be able to have candidates, there must have been prerequisites within that political framework to allow you to be so. Then you must be accountable. You must be able to come up with a manifesto. And I put it even there that you are accountable to the people. If they ask you questions, you must be there and answer to those questions. Not that one way or the other, some people will even tell you, there's no campaign. What do you mean by campaign? I'm not even interested in that. Let's go to the election proper. As if we are doing Olympics, like you said, where laurels are being given to the person.
So there's no need for communication of their plans.
No
need for persuasion.
No
need for.
No, what they do is to employ foot soldiers who will help them get to the electorate through
the spokespersons. All of them now have spokespersons. Who, of course, yes, we all know that they have been delegated the power to speak on behalf of their principals. Principals will sit back, the spokesperson now, even most times indulge in smear campaigns as against the opponents. Why? Because it is the man that wants to do the job, who wants to put his hand on the plow. That same man is the one that we expect to come up and let Nigerians know exactly what you have in store for them. And during that manifesto and campaign and door-to-door canvassing and persuasion, one can change his mind and see that you'll be able to do it. But they are all elusive as at this moment. The campaign has started, of course, since October or something.
No, September 28th.
September 28th. Now 2 weeks down the lane or so. What have we heard? Nothing. Some people have even postponed theirs to start yesterday or so. We are yet to hear so much. So what I'm saying in essence is we shouldn't be docile. As much as all these people should be accountable,
of course.
You have to come and tell Nigerians what you have to do for them. You have to articulate it. You have to make sure that it's well thought out, and people will be convinced to know that you will do this. On that basis, for instance, you will be accountable. Who would you now hold accountable when is the spokesperson that will speak on your behalf and make promises? Sometimes some of them will say, I didn't make the promise.
And now we are in a digital age. Go to the website of all these political parties. You can't find serious compendium of manifestos. In fact, what they are having, the political parties, they are built around their individuals, their candidates. It's like the candidate owns the party. Because once the candidate wins the election, he becomes the leader of the party. That is not democracy. Because the party supremacy means that even when you are elected as the president or governor, you are still answerable to your party, to the leaders of the party. So now the issues, because we have not really itemized those issues, even though we have been talking about them. If you talk about the issue of security, for example, what Nigerians really interested? Are they asking questions from these candidates? What do you want to do with the issue of insecurity, and how?
How?
What will you do differently from previous governments and this current government? How?
But I've heard some of them say things. I've heard some of them say things like if they divulge what they want to do regarding.
How can somebody be saying if you divulge
what do you want to divulge? The truth about security is this. We are not saying you should tell us your whole nitty-gritty or the strategy. Okay, for instance, you have had Boko Haram in the last 12 years or more in the northeastern part of the country, which of course is still ravaging and has been transmuted into all various heinous crimes like kidnapping and all that, what have you. Okay, what are you going to do different in the northeast? What is the cause of this? What has been done and has not yielded results that will make you think that changing
let me just we are just discussing security just as an issue. Now, do you need to hide from the people whether you want to push forward for state police, for decentralization of security, for example, for restructuring? Do you need to say that you don't want people to know? Now what do you want to do about education? What do we want to do about primary, about secondary, about technical education? Now you are talking. Everybody is talking about university, as if our life depends on university, as if you have not gone to the university, you have not arrived, as if nothing will happen, and we are missing it. We are destroying our future. The technical colleges are dead now. How do we want to develop technologically when the technical colleges are dead? So how many candidates are talking about what they will do In fact, polytechnics, people are changing polytechnics to universities, changing colleges to university. We are missing everything, messing up, and nobody is addressing this issue.
Now there have been incessant strike, for instance, which of course has been protracted, and the students have been, what are you going to do
to avoid, to prevent that you will settle this thing once and for all?
The economy, finally, we are owing. The DMO says our debt is 46 trillion as we speak. And we already know that the naira has been devalued and is almost as worthless as tissue paper. Thirdly, we know that the economy, the GDP, and to the capital development or human capital development of the country is at its lowest ebb. In fact, we have been out of recession maybe twice in how many years now? So come and give us your economic blueprint. Don't say economy, we will change the economy. Give us a blueprint. Give us details. Let's have details on how you are going to do it, how you are going to change it. These are the things by now expected all the three political parties or four major political parties
even in the power sector. Instead of us to be going, and we are increasing in population, yes, we are decreasing in megawatts that we are pumping. Nobody is talking about that. How you want to improve the? I mean, how do you want to create jobs? How do you want to sustain the economy when there is no power, stable power supply?
Primary health care is there.
So
what do we do? So
in fact, no, people should even be asking them that, okay, if you say you want to solve, you want to do something about education or about health, will you stop going for health tourism, medical tourism? People are not asking them. Yeah. If they have any cut in their hand, they cannot treat themselves here. They go abroad, and you say they are going to deliver.
Of course,
their children are not attending our universities. They are
Nigerians will be willing to also hear about the brain drain in the country.
Of course, now these are
across
issues.
sectors. The
even this morning, very sad news that even doctors in the UK they are exploited. It's in the news.
Nigerian doctors.
The Nigerian doctors in the UK. So even as much as the brain drain is there, it means it's not even greener on the other side as most people think.
No, that is modern slavery.
Modern slavery.
It's modern slavery.
Economic neocolonialism. And that is to tell you that we must rise up at this point to ask questions. We must hold these our so-called leaders or candidates or whatever, we must hold them responsible and accountable to the promises. In fact, we want to hear them out more than ever, whereby they will be standing behind the shadows and putting up. We are tired of spokespersons. We want the real deal done by those people who will come out and tell us. So we're expecting the 4 or 5 major political parties older, leading from Sowore to Kwakwanso to Ashwaju to Atiku and Toby. All of them should come out. By this time, there should be that debate or debate engagement over the media places flooded where persuasions are coming. Oh, I want to do this differently. How are you going to do it? Oh, you didn't do this right. This is what the people say. We want facts and figures to get people convinced so that up until the end or during the elections, we are sure that when the elections are over, we'll be able to have, at least for the first time, a government that is moving us in the right direction.
A government that is moving us in the right direction. Let's talk about something else that Dr. NELIAKU also raised, which is the fact that you already hinted it, using women and women being debased, the dignity of women debased, such that all they do now is wear their shwebis and then dance. How do you correlate with this, especially the fact that earlier this year, these women were also calling for 35%, of the seats in the National Assembly? How
the 35% has already been given during the campaign. And that has to do with the materials, Ashwebi, and all the goodies that they said. Otherwise, if they are more serious-minded, for instance, I expected by now, why aren't even women having their own political parties? Yes. There are occasions where even the leading political parties that have men in the forefront, women are tackling them on the basis of issues. And that's why in normal parlance, you have women who have been presidents of countries, prime ministers
even in the African
So
sector.
the truth is that here, they are even the ones relegating it back to the Owambe stuff.
Okay, the women themselves.
Yes.
Are the ones.
Otherwise, why would it mean that your whole role is during the elections and you are used for campaigns and not even campaigns?
Sorry, my brother. Let me just support you to say that.
Just the dance.
Do you know that the next election is going, in terms of women
participation is quite low.
It's going to be worse. When I say participation, I'm not talking of voting. In terms of how many women will be elected. Now, and all these primaries, women were there as delegates. They didn't vote for their own. What are we talking about? So they voted for men, and it is from this candidate.
And perhaps as a result of what you said.
Of course,
the percentage has already been given.
Now, In fact, I'm not sure that in the next assembly we have as much women as it has now. It's that bad. And so I agree with him. If women form their own political parties, you don't need to start from the presidential election.
Yeah.
You can start from houses of assembly when you begin to do
your negotiations and alignments
then
will be taken
governors.
very seriously.
Do you know that
the major parties would negotiate with you once they see that you are a strong vibe, and to be candid with you, they are the highest voters. Number of voters, you get them from women. So when they complain about this most times, I see them not having to understand it more seriously and taking it more seriously the way they should have been. So ordinarily, you wouldn't expect at this point now that Nigeria is yet, except that woman in Igbo land, is yet to have a female governor. In the last how many years?
She was not even allowed to
rule. But of course, that perhaps by now should have been a thing of the past.
Of course.
Honestly.
Because their participation,
even as we speak now, how many major parties are feeding women for governor?
No. At the end, the highest is they will make them the spiritual deputy governor. And it's not even the case right now, because the whole place, in fact, as I tell you now, most of the things political parties have successfully done is to share appointments and positions even before the elections.
Yes, sadly. We're already hearing that.
So what do you now expect? Everybody now that will not work on the basis of what you have to tell me, how you're able to convince or persuade me on the good things you are supposed to do and have good governance. But on my own position, that I have to work hard to get it guaranteed that when the elections are over, I'm part of those people that will continue to cut and eat of that national cake.
So
it's really sad.
But all the same, the ball is in our court.
But
the destiny is in our hands.
Are we willing as Nigerians to really take our destinies in our hands?
Deserves. Because the way we are going now the brain drain, our able-bodied, even those who we have trained, doctors, professionals, lecturers we have trained, they are migrating abroad. Whether to do something meaningful or not is another case. But now, there is a gap, a generational gap is coming up, So we are not asking. Some people will say that, hey, we are getting money from diaspora remittances. Is that what we build our economy? How many diaspora remittances have built industries now? Industries have left us. They have gone to
the money that comes, the remittances that comes from diaspora are meant for necessities.
They are for consumption. Not for production.
Because most of, if they say it's about $25 billion or something, it's just to cushion the effect of the economic hardship in the country. Yes. It's not as if it's used to industrialize.
Of course.
It's not as if some of those monies are used to build or repair the refineries. It's not as if most of them are used to make universities work the way they should work. It's just for feeding and
other consumption.
Consumption pattern. So to a certain extent, until we have that revolutionized thinking from the masses, and this is what we are doing right now, to let people be aware more about the rights and privileges that they have.
In this 21st century, this is 2022, Nigeria will still depend heavily, massively on subsistence farming, using hoe and cutlasses. So how many of these candidates are telling us how they want to bring up mechanized farming, for example, and ensure food sufficiency? We import almost anything, almost everything.
Many will say, as they're watching us right now,
and yet we have a vast land resource, freely given us by God.
Many Nigerians will say, as they're watching us right now, that you have food in your stomach. That's why you can speak all of this grammar and say, okay, you need to stand and say, make these choices, say no, don't sell your votes and all of that. But poverty has weaponized.
And we know, but we also have a problem within us. If poverty is pushing us, yes, mental poverty. If poverty,
it's more.
Please, if poverty is moving us to be getting bribed, selling our votes, I think that is wrong. That poverty should even make us to be disenchanted with the establishment. To be disenchanted and to revolt and to resist.
Because it's more like adding insults to
yes, now. So you are being impoverished, and yet you agree that you continue to be impoverished. You are still getting pittance. You should resist. You should revolt.
So our people should have that understanding at this time that most of the candidates from all the sectors or the categories of elections, that is coming up, are accountable to them. And they must hold them accountable by allowing them come before audiences, before people, mass media, to tell people what they want to offer us. Otherwise, if we still keep quiet the same way, of course, I wouldn't expect any magic anywhere.
Yes.
We are heading for a fiasco in this country if we fail to have good leadership in the next dispensation.
Well, let's hope we never get to that point. But like you have said, it's important that we all know that we have a role to play.
Yes, all
and one of
us.
the key things at this point is the fact that once these people, these gladiators, these political candidates come to us to say, okay, this is it, we must ask questions and we must be willing to say, okay, let's have a clear-cut understanding of what your plans are for us. Until we get to that point, all of the need to reprogram, to restructure, we are only just speaking all of the grammar that we can think of, and there will really be no change that we are clamoring for. Many thanks, gentlemen, once again for doing justice to our talking point, our focus for today, which is issue-based campaigns at this time, and of course the fact that we are also seeking good governance come 2023 and afterwards. Let's hope we get there. Thank you so much, Dr. Gbenga Abimbola, for coming on the program again today.
It is my pleasure.
Many thanks to you, Mr. Olajobi.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much, dear viewer, for making out time to listen to us today and, of course, to watch us from any of our platforms that you're watching from. It is your role to play. I have a role to play. This is the time for the campaigns. Let us ask and ask and ask. They are accountable to us, our these political candidates, and then we should demand that they tell us what they have for us come 2023 and afterwards. Of course, for Nigeria as a whole, we must begin to restructure and reprogram our minds. Till this program comes away, same time next week, I am Obi Chukwemeka Oti saying bye for